COP28 will be happening at the end of November this year, 2023, in Dubai. And there's a huge conflict of interest. So COP28 is coming. That's the Conference of Parties, and it's the 28th consecutive year of these meetings. And we're finally going to get some real action on climate change to keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees centigrade rise since the pre-industrial levels. Yes, really, I'm sure it's going to happen. Honest. Yeah. I mean, it hasn't in all the previous COP meetings, but it's going to happen this time. Yeah, sure. No. On the agenda is going to be everything from cutting greenhouse emissions to adapting to extreme weather events, trading carbon emissions, and so on. Already this year, we've seen some catastrophic events or catastrophic effects of climate change on this planet, with everything from wildfires, you've got them in Canada, America, Australia, through to massive floods in many, many places. And it's just going to get worse. Now, it's estimated that the world will exceed the 1.5 degrees C somewhere between 2026 and 2042. Now, 2026 is only a couple of years away.
We're doomed.
Don't be quiet, Fraser.
So, COP28 president is Sultan Al Jaber, PhD. He's the United Arab Emirates' Minister for Industry and Advanced Technology. Now, as this year's president, he's responsible for the agenda at COP28. But he's also the group CEO of one of the largest oil companies in the world, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, or ADNOC. It's a massive polluter. It makes 5 million barrels of oil per day, and it's responsible for 57 billion, that's with a B, cubic meters of methane per year. And it's also responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than Exxon or BP. Now, Climate Week is the largest annual climate event of its kind, bringing some 400 events and activities in the city of New York. And it's hosted by the Climate Group. Now, the Climate Group is an international non-profit organisation whose purpose is to drive action on climate change. Now, this year's Climate Week, New York City, was held from the 17th to the 24th of September. So it finished a few days ago. And it was also in partnership with the United Nations General Assembly. Now, their motto for this year was, "We can, we will." Even our very own Andrew Forrest, who's executive chairman of Fortescue. Now, okay, that is a mining company here in Western Australia. He was one of the speakers. But before you go on about mining companies, Fortescue is actually at the forefront of electrification of mining. They've ordered electric trains. They're getting electric trucks. He's putting in vast amounts of solar panels as renewables to try and help offset all the mining emissions. So this year at the Climate Week, they tackled three key questions. Firstly, climate action isn't moving fast enough around the globe. Yeah, I think we all knew that. Secondly, whilst we've made huge strides, as evidenced by the billions committed by, say, the big three, US, China and Europe, how do we ensure that they're implemented? And thirdly, where have they picked up their biggest wins so far, and how can they use the collective will of the climate community to remain inspired, stay the course and continue to drive climate action fast? Well, let's get back to Sultan Al Jaber. He just published an article in Fortune where he stated that it's time to transform climate finance and bridge this $2.4 trillion gap. Now, he stated that the daunting reality is that by 2030, the developing world will need more than $2.4 trillion US to address climate change, not as a one-off, but every single year. So far, donor countries have committed to mobilise 100 billion annually, which is a small fraction of that $2.4 trillion. So, is the world capable of mobilising that amount of money? $2.4 trillion per annum. Let's take a little look.
Don't panic! Don't panic!
Now, according to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, fossil fuel subsidies topped, wait for it, $7 trillion in 2022. 7 trillion US. Now, that's comprised of both explicit and implicit substances. So, if we just divert a little bit away, let's say, I don't know, maybe about a third, we could do it. All we need are the governments around the world to actually act. Not much to ask, is it? Of course, unfortunately, the fossil fuel companies are very good at what they do. And it's unlikely to happen, which is a great pity.
We're all doomed!
Now, Al Gore, he's a former US vice president under Bill Clinton. He is one of the foremost people for promoting swift action for climate change. About a month ago, Al Gore gave a brilliant TED talk on what the fossil fuel industry doesn't want you to know. And he showed graphs and demonstrated that the amount of sea ice is decreasing and the sea surface temperatures are increasing at an alarming rate. And despite the deployment of more renewables, emissions are still, guess what? They're going up. So why is this? It's because the fossil fuel company lobbyists are doing everything they can to slow down progress on the actions needed to affect climate change. Let's just have a quick look at what Al Gore said.
Every piece of legislation, whether it's at the municipal level, the regional or provincial level, the national level, or the international level, they're in there with their lobbyists and with their fixers and with their revolving door colleagues, doing everything they can to slow down progress. So speeding up progress means doing something about this. They have used fraud on a massive scale. They've used falsehoods on an industrial scale, and they've used their legacy political and economic networks, lavishly funded, to capture the policymaking process in too many countries around the world. And the Secretary General said the fossil fuel industry is the polluted heart of the climate crisis.
The fossil fuel company delegates at the COP meetings has steadily increased until Glasgow 2021, where there were 503 more than any other group or country. Here's Al Gore again.
And concern has been building about this for quite some time. I remember when there were so many fossil fuel delegates in Madrid, but by the time we got to Glasgow a year and a half ago, the delegates from the fossil fuel companies made up a larger group than the largest national delegation. And why? Why? Because they're helping, they're not helping, they're trying to stop progress. And last year in Egypt, they had more delegates than the combined delegations of the 10 most affected countries by climate. And now, this year's host, which is a petrostate, has appointed the president of COP28 in spite of the fact that he has a blatant conflict of interest. He's the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, owned by Abu Dhabi. Their emissions are larger than those of ExxonMobil, and they have no credible plan whatsoever to reduce them.
ADNOC CEO Al Jaber has a massive conflict of interest. And his company plans to increase its global emissions by at least 50% up to 2030. Now, this is in the same time frame that the world is trying to reduce emissions by 50%. I'll put a link to the Al Gore TED Talk in the description below. It's well worth a watch. In it, he covers how the fossil fuel companies are reneging on their commitments to help and are in fact going further the other way. Have a quick look.
There's their CCS capability. Oh, but they've got a great improvement in the work. 7 years from now, they're going to have a 500% increase in their capacity. But here are the emissions from oil and gas production alone. And here are the emissions of greenhouse gases from Abu Dhabi, from the UAE. Now, the pathetic little sliver there, compared to the reality, again, do they think we don't see what they're doing, don't understand what they're doing? A lot of people maybe just want to look away from it.
And another thing that the fossil fuel industry has affected is in the UK. Now, originally, they were planning to cease ICE vehicle sales or new petrol diesel cars by 2030. Now, Rishi Sunak, who's the UK Prime Minister, has just announced it will be postponed for 5 years until 2035. This watering down is shocking and disappointing. Not only that, but they're pushing back the phasing out of gas boilers, claiming these moves will save families money while still adhering to the net zero target of 2050. We've got to spend some money to get to net zero, not save it. So I still believe that this net zero target needs to be changed to net negative. Global temperatures are increasing and we're going to see a worsening of events as the years go by. Even here in Australia, they're now warning that although there's a problem with bushfires and floods, there's going to be another big problem, which they're terming the silent killer. Heat waves. They're going to become more common. Australia's already a pretty hot place, but it's going to have hotter times. The only way to stop this going anywhere is to stop fossil fuels from being burnt. As I keep maintaining, let's stop burning shit. So what needs to be done? Basically, we need more. As Al Gore put it, more solar, more wind, more regenerative agriculture, more EVs, more charging stations, more energy storage, more green hydrogen, not more fossil fuels, please. The International Energy Agency, IEA, has released its roadmap for the global energy sector to reach net zero by 2050. Interesting, in it, they show that in order to reach this target, there needs to be behavioural change, expansion of current technologies, and the development of some new technologies that are already in the making. But the global energy market needs to be dominated by renewables, not new coal mines, as is happening here in Australia. Already this year, they've approved 4 new ones. Oh, what? And in fact, the IEA states that there should be no, N-O, no new investments in the fossil fuel industry. Yet it's still happening at an even faster rate. Here in Western Australia, we've got a big gas project up on the northwest, and they're expanding it for another 50 years. We need more and more governments pledging to get to net zero, or net negative, please, by 2050. They're all pledging it, lots of them are, but they're not laid out plans how they're going to do it. Remember the old adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. The government of Australia is supposed to be doing so much towards getting a net zero without a clear path to do it. In fact, we've still got no emissions control for our vehicles. It's complete lunacy, if you ask me. So let me just finish my rant. I'm getting a bit with it all. from the recent Climate Week, New York City. And I'll read this. We find ourselves at a critical juncture in human history where the grim reality of climate change is impacting everyone. We witness the unraveling of ecosystems and habitats that have thrived for millennia, the devastation of extreme weather events on our communities, the economic toll of climate-induced disasters, and the haunting spectre of a compromised future for generations to come. But amid all this stark reality, there is hope and a call to action. We have the knowledge, the innovation, and the collective will to drive meaningful climate solutions. Business and government, those with the most power to drive change, must lead the charge. It is not just a moral imperative, it's an existential necessity. The time for action is now, and together we can forge a path towards a resilient world for all. Scientists have been on the front line of the battle against climate change for years, tirelessly conducting research, analysing data, and sounding the alarm on the urgent need for action. Their unwavering dedication and expertise have been instrumental in advancing our understanding of this global crisis and in driving the pursuit of innovative solutions. Yeah, I think that basically sums it up. We need our governments to act urgently. They need to stop the gab, and need to actually start do. It's all very well saying, we're going to do this. Well, tell me, how the bloody hell are you going to do it? Thanks for watching that rant. Please don't forget, can you click that like and subscribe button below? Remember, it costs you nothing, but it really does help the channel. And also, let me know your thoughts on climate change in the comments below. What do you think? Are the governments doing enough? Do they need to do more? And it would also help me to keep making these videos if you could click on the Ko-fi link below in the description and buy me a coffee, either once or on a regular basis by setting up a monthly contribution. And I'll see you all very soon.